Okay. All right. So I'm going to start off with my summaries on the 3 articles. So the first one was the ethics of animal research. That's the one where it gave us a lot of the background on animal research, and that was with the 3 R's, which I think is like the most important thing we had. So replacement, replace the methods which we use of conscious living vertebrates, relative or absolute replacement of animals with something else. And then we have reduction, which was the balancing and minimizing the number of animals that we use, so we could kind of figure out, hey, we need this many instead of overusing too many. And then refinement, ability to improve, avoid, alleviate, minimize potential pain, distress, or adverse effects suffered by the animals or enhance their well-being. So the second article, that one was about COVID, and it kind of gave us a lot of that background information when it came to drugs entering their phase trials. So we have phase 1, 2, and 3. And with all said and done, only about 15% finish phase 3 that are even submitted to FDA for approval. And then only about 10% of drugs that actually enter phase 1 even get FDA approval in the end. So it kind of shows you how little really gets approved of what's going on. And then in the third article, that one's discussing our pandemic that's going on right now with COVID-19 and how they're having to rush our trials and kind of forgo a lot of their requirements that they're used to going to. So now a lot of them are being fast tracked. Sometimes they're even skipping the animal part and going straight to the humans and doing that a lot quicker. There are some that are still using animals, and they're doing ferrets, the non-human primates, pigs, and rodents. And that's where they kind of figured out that the transmissions via direct and indirect contact. So that was my quick little summary of the 3. I don't know if y'all have anything to add. If not, I'm gonna go straight to questions. Okay, guys?
Sounds good.
All right, so question 1.
We introduce ourselves as what role we are?
Yeah, so Leslie, Facilitator.
Rebecca, the timekeeper.
Alexis, reporter.
Michelle, note taker.
All right, so first question, animal research peaked in 1970, but then slowly started declining. The reason we give for this is, excuse me guys, cruelty to the Animal Act that was introduced in 1876 kind of became more prominent, and then introduced animal experimentation, ethical review process and guidelines to follow. Y'all have anything you want to add on this? I know we have a bunch of little notes here.
Something that I added to it was that PETA started in 1980.
That's good.
And I would like to add that the Animal Act of 1876, it basically started the uproar and the determination of PETA to go against animal cruelty.
And then for the second one was how many vertebrate animals are used in research and drug testing per year. This is something that I found. It was about 1.7 million animals a year just in the US alone. So that means there's so much more. And I think we also got 25 million as a number, which I think that's going to probably be more globally. The next one is, does man have the moral and ethical right to subject animals to any suffering for his or own benefit? So I think this one, we got a scientist's ethical responsibility is the recognition and the relief of distress and pain in experimental animals, and knowing that there's alternatives, but it can't replace animal testing altogether. I think this is something we kind of all agreed on, despite ethical and political and financial incentives.
Is this the same question that we have to prove in the debate?
It's similar. It's not.
Oh, okay. I have any suffering for his own benefit.
Yeah, this one's going to be based off that PowerPoint you gave us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I mean, number 3 is very subjective. It depends on the animal being, you know, sentient and stuff like that. But according to the articles, it basically was in favor of animal research in order for our own benefit as Homo sapiens.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's hard to sit there and look at it and be like, yeah, it's not good for us, because obviously we've benefited from it for years if we're still continuing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the next one is animal experimentation necessary, and do the benefits outweigh the suffering? Which this is, I think, one of our questions in the debate, but it's more for us to kind of, we don't have to go off of our debate stand.
Okay, so it's not really like where we took the standpoint, we can just talk about it.
Freely, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So for this one, I don't know, I feel personally kind of torn, like, don't want to see excessive animal abuse, but obviously there has been some benefits. It's just more of a question like, you know, say we do eventually get alternatives that are better, I would definitely love to go that route, but seeing as we're not quite there yet, there is still some benefits to using animals as a research way.
Yeah, agreed. That's how I felt when I read the article. It's like, well, you have to feel conflicted, especially if you're in this type of field. You know that the benefits are there for animal testing, but at the same time, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that there is, it's not really necessary, but we haven't gotten to the point yet. Even though we're advanced in technology and stuff, we haven't gotten to the point where we can completely exclude animal testing. So, agree.
Yeah, I completely agree with Alexis. Having in vitro experiments just to replicate what humans can undergo, for example, vaccinations and stuff like that. People can say that it's unethical, but at the same time, it's still unethical to test on animals. But yet, animals can mimic humans. Like, for instance, in some countries, people use dogs in order to understand the digestive system of the human body. But at the same time, using these animals, some people, like in the organization of PETA, would see it as immoral, but it just depends.
Yeah. Do y'all remember which animals, I guess, Michelle, if you want to answer this, which animals we couldn't use for COVID-19 because they don't have that same mimic of reactions that we do?
Wasn't it mice?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't have like a certain mediator or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, I think that overall, I guess my viewpoint is having a healthy amount of concern around animal suffering, like keeping it in the back of your mind as you're doing an experiment, because it's going to happen, and just being aware of it, I think, is important. And I think that's what the article, if it didn't convince you to stop animal testing or tone it down, it definitely suggested to think about it when you're doing an experiment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so next question we're going to want to touch up on is, so I did go over the 3 R's, and it's saying, is replacement always an option? Reduction, is it always an option? And is refinement always an option? What would y'all say? For me personally, I'd probably say no to all of them, but sometimes replacement, it can be a yes. It just depends on the situation.
I would agree with that. I think that all of them are a no to a certain extent.
Yeah. All right, so y'all ready to move on to the next one? What constitutes an acceptable animal research proposal? So we got the estimate of the amount of animals you're going to be using, your minimization, your justification for it, record of keeping, mishap reporting, redressal, and feedback. And then there's the techniques, details of surgery, pain management, everything that you're going to be doing to give the well-being of these animals safe and pain-free without too much.
Yeah, then I agree with that as well. And I guess like whenever it said, right, pain and distress management, they were talking about like the animal handlers too, right?
Yes.
Acceptable animal research.
Yeah, because
Yes.
from what I understood, not all the time, it's not always just the scientist that's working in these experiments. They have handlers to help them. So they both need to be accountable for what's going on.
Yeah, I heard that. I mean, I read that as well.
I would like to add that at the same time, they have to go through the protocols of the animal welfare and all of the guidelines. So, yeah.
All right. And then what is OECD? It's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They promote policies that will improve the economic and social well-being of people around the world. And they provide a forum in which governments can work together to share experiences and seek solutions to common problems. Next one. All right. And disadvantages of in vitro and ex vivo models of toxicity. Anybody want to touch upon that, or would you like me to?
I know, like, let me go back to that question, sorry. So I know, like, for in vitro, the cell functionality decreases over time. The cell functional is variable, and then it also expresses, like, low level of whatever is being tested. So I'm trying to remember what else. Let's see. Or I don't know if anybody wants to join, add on to what I said. I don't know.
No. Testing in vivo takes a lot longer versus with animals.
Yeah. And sometimes in the vitro research, there's a limitation to that information because that information is being passed down to each research facility, and it takes more cost in order to replicate those experiments. So I would say that's a disadvantage because it's more focused on time as well as the budget.
Oh yeah, especially with COVID-19 right now, you know, there's no time, there's no real time. Let's get it. Who cares the budget? Let's get it out here.
Yeah, agreed.
And then I know I touched base on this earlier. Another question was, what species are used to conduct in our COVID-19 research? Does anyone remember?
The animals that are being used?
Oh
no, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay. Like I know ferrets right now are being used to test for the, what is it? A transmission route of COVID-19. Non-human primates are also being tested to understand lung pathology, and other non-human primates are being used to identify whether protective immunity develops after infection. So that, as of right now, right? I don't think I know that they said that they made a transmutagenic mouse for COVID-19, but they didn't state in the article whether or not they're actually using it. They just stated that they weren't really good, right?
Yeah, they don't have that mediator response that we do.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next one is, what is known about the efficacy of the SARS-CoV-1 and how was efficacy established in this one? So,
was it the vaccination of the ferrets in 2004? And basically it was the antibody levels were too low to cover endovirin. So it was just a test, but it was just to see it being established, but it didn't continue on with that because the information wasn't reliable.
Agreed.
right? And then most common animal species used in biomedical research. Anyone know this one? It's one we've talked about a lot. It's the ferrets, and then the this one was the pale brown Asian monkey. I cannot say that.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say that too. I was like, I don't really know how to pronounce its name. I just know it's a non-human primate, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, next we can do, what are the normal steps in vaccine development? Anyone want to explain that real quick? Quick bullet point.
I can touch on that. So there's the exploratory stage, the preclinical, laboratory, and animal testing stage, clinical development, which is 3 separate human testing steps, regulatory review and approval, manufacturing, which is after the drug is approved and the pharmaceutical company begins production, / new plant may take months to years to build, and then quality control is the last step.
Agreed.